You're listening to Underworld on the Ghost Radio Network.
Ghost Radio Australia.
Listen.
Hauntings. The unexplained. Synchronicity. EVP.
So why are you?
I heard that.
Absolutely fascinating.
What are midlights? Is it real? What do you think?
I love you.
The unseen.
I'm alright.
11:11.
Who or what are mutilating cattle?
Listen.
Poltergeists. Your stories. Your experiences. Listen close.
Robbie Thomas is an internationally acclaimed psychic, author and host of his own syndicated radio show, A Link to Heaven. He's currently midway through his very successful Power of Spirit tour. We're going to chat with him about some of the very interesting and very haunted places he's been visiting. He's an absolute Ghost Radio favourite. Welcome back to Ghost Radio, Robbie Thomas.
Oh, thank you so much. It's good to be here.
I should probably preempt this interview by telling everybody that Robbie is a very good friend and that he definitely is a absolute Ghost Radio favourite, and we should probably just get that out of the way first, where I should just say that I just love this guy.
The check's in the mail. I put an extra $5.
Good on you. Okay. Now, you have been extremely busy since we last spoke. You're always busy, but since we last spoke, it's just been madness.
Yeah, it's a madhouse, and I love it. There's a lot of things that John and I are going to get into, and there's a lot of things I'm trying to finish up over here. And if there was enough hours in a day, oh boy, I just love it. But it's the madness of everything, and it's extraordinary.
Okay, let's talk about the Power of Spirit tour. You're in Canada, but you've been heading on down into the USA to visit some not famous and not so famous haunted locations that you've been discovering. Tell us about the first trip you did in May in Kentucky at Bardstown.
Yeah, that was a very exclusive trip. It had more items on the page, the docket, than anything. We went down there and did a 1-hour call-in show on NBC affiliate, and apparently the phone lines were shut down. I love it when people call in, we can talk to them and nitter natter. But it was a great show. Took questions and answered the people's questions, and it was fantastic. Then we did an interview in a newspaper, and from that we went to a murder case. And the murder case was 7 children, 3 adults, 10 total perished in a fire. I was doing preliminary work at home through a picture. All I had was a picture, and then I said to the liaison in Kentucky, I need you to go to the back of the house. There's something they're missing. They're totally missing. You have to go back and snap a picture. So the individual went back to the back of the home, snapped a picture, and sure enough, about 15 feet away from the home and the police line, which they taped up around the house, a gas can lay there with the nozzle open. So, in speculation whatsoever, fire marshal or police should have said, this is suspicious, we're treating it as a homicide, or even go further and say it's a murder case and move forward that way. Nothing was done. The fire rampaged through the home within minutes from front to back, and they have somebody who has flash burns to their hands and face, I said. Turns out there was one individual from that family who had flash burns to their hands and face. Now, when a combustible is laid upon anywhere, the fumes circulate in the air. You go to light that with a match, you're getting a combustible flashback. So that's where the singeing came from. They overlooked all this evidence, and it's astonishing to say. And then the coroner's report came forward, and they also played it on NBC, I think it was called Dateline. They put a show on primetime, sorry. And the coroner said they died of smoke inhalation, but with toxicity was very high. And when you have something like that with a flammable gas, you're going to get the toxicity of that going through the air. I don't know how they overlooked that again. They said it was a cigarette that started the fire, was in a chair. Now, if you take a cigarette and put it in a chair, within even 10 minutes, that chair would not ignite to engulf a complete home that fast. It would smolder for a while. It takes time for it to catch and even the chair to come on fire. That house went up within minutes, not 10, 20, 30 minutes. It went up within just minutes. Phenomenal how they just didn't recognize this and use their mindset to figure things out. I think what it was, and I know when I feel things, they were so drawn to seeing the loss of life and how many were there that they overlooked all these things. Now, when we were interviewed, we had Fox Television was there. We had ABC, CBS affiliates, NBC affiliates. There was many of them. And when we did the newscast, and they asked me what I think, I pulled out the picture and I pointed to the gas can. Well, that raised eyebrows. And the chief of police wanted, in conjunction, to work with me. He wanted my report. So the report was submitted. And from that moment on now, they have the truth in their hands. I laid it out as a detailed what happened, what I seen, what I felt, what I heard, all the way down for like a timeline. And it was really funny because when you look at stuff and you see that people leave the home and then are caught on film somewhere else, just a block or two away, sitting and waiting just for a fraction of moments, and then return to the scene, it's kind of fishy. You gotta look at that. They never did. There's so many things and variables that they missed, and it's phenomenal. So I have to look at stuff like that and say, you got to do your homework. From that moment, down in Kentucky, we went onward to do a few investigations. We did the Talbot Tavern, very historical site. It was fun reading that place and getting the yesteryear and seeing how people dressed, and I was explaining how the children were running up and down the hall. They've done several investigations of this place prior to, and it was just amazing. It was all being validated, and I sat in this one room and I said, there's an older man that comes and sits in that chair, and he's got a white big mustache, he's got whitish hair, and he sits there, and it was all validated from people who used to stay in that room that would see this gentleman, and you'd be perched in that chair. And it was funny, we went to another room, and I said, wow, I feel like there's soldiers and people come in here and they stand right here. And I don't know why, but they stand right here for some reason, just to let people know. And they said, people who come to stay in that room, when the TV's off, they look in the screen and they see the reflection of soldiers standing right in that spot. Now that's fascinating, because they're just letting us know that, hey, I'm here. And we went on to do the Pioneer Cemetery. It looks like an abandoned cemetery if you're standing on the grounds. The headstones are very far few in between, and there's a real area that's just totally empty. And there was a historian that was there, and I said, you know, there's a bunch of children buried here, and they died of disease. There's no markers. What happened was the children died of smallpox, and they buried them all in there. And it was a mass burial, and it was fascinating to walk through that and getting EVP recordings where I'm standing at the beginning of the opening of the cemetery, and only about 15 feet from me there was the gallows where they used to hang people, and there was a stone wall. Now back then the stone wall wasn't there, but the stone wall went up. And I'm talking and I'm saying, wow, you know, I feel like this gentleman here was hung on the gallows and so he belongs not here. And then you hear on the EVP recording, I was hung on the gallows. And so when we turn and look, the gallows is right there. It was amazing.
So, Kentucky is really haunted then, as far as Robbie Thomas is concerned.
Yeah, it truly is. There's a lot of history. We went to the Perryville battlefield. We did a sweep through the Perryville battlefield for hours. And I hit this, call it a divot, where the cannonball would hit and create a crater. I kind of stumbled into it. I didn't see it coming because I was walking in the tall grass. And as I get up and I'm giggling, and I had Michael Esposito beside me recording, I get this slap. And the slap hits me hard enough, and I go, what the hell was that? And Michael jumped because he can hear it. And it was amazing. I was describing, I can see them now. And they're running through the field. I can hear them. And what it was is when they were on their charge, the cannonball fire was coming through. It was totally amazing. We get up to the fence line where the tree line was, and I said, you know, this area here was all really busted up, and it's like they turned the fire continuously on here. And then the historian was saying that what they did was they turned the cannons, and they actually did blow this whole area because they were building a flank. And I could hear the guys dying, and it was amazing. We stepped over that fence line, walked a little further, about, say 20 paces, and then I come across an individual who was cut from the one side of the stomach to the other, and I was talking to him and I'm saying, you died here, but you didn't actually die here. You crawled. You were trying to get back to her. And I said, you reached in your lapel, and you were reaching for something in your lapel, a picture, and he goes, Amanda. And you can hear him talking back about his wife, Amanda.
In the EVP?
On the EVP.
Wow. That of course would be Michael Esposito, who we've interviewed a couple of times as well on Ghost Radio. He teams up with you pretty much all the time you do any investigation, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He's a great guy. Love working with him. He's got a lot of integrity. He searches for the truth scientifically, and when we correlate it with the spiritual side, it just makes everything more validated.
Each of you doing your own thing, but when you come together as a collaboration, it's quite an extraordinary thing, as people would be able to tell from Dead Whisper, who we've spoken to you about before. But I do hope that everybody gets a copy of Dead Whisper and checks it out, because it's a fantastic production. You've just returned from Kansas at the Sally House, which most people would be familiar with, I would think, even if you're out of America. Most people have heard of the Sally House. What was your feelings about the Sally House? Or give us a brief history for those people who don't know what the Sally House is, and then tell us what your thoughts are about it, Robbie.
Okay. I went in cold. I don't know too much about the Sally House history whatsoever, other than Michael saying, listen to this EVP. And I listened to some extraordinary captures where a woman's crying out, die here, and the lights red and green, and it was a jingle. It was an Irish jingle. Just things like that. I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is extraordinary. I got to go there. And so we set this up.
Well,
the only thing I know about the Sally House is that they made a movie of it. It was on television. Apparently, there was a lot of extraordinary activity.
I'll just give people a brief rundown then. The Sally House is referred to the Sally House because of a little girl named Sally who died there from an operation she was having for appendicitis. The story goes that the doctor didn't put her out properly because they used ether back then, and she woke up midway through the operation and, shall we say, cursed the house forevermore. That's local legend and lore. Some people that moved in there, but the Pickmans, Tony and Deborah Pickman, Tony in particular was harassed by some kind of spirit who may or may not be Sally, because another psychic said it was not her at all, it was an older woman. So that's the basic rundown of the Sally House for those people who didn't know. Please continue, Robbie.
Yes, most definitely. You've hit on some points that are very valid. Back last November, New Dominion Pictures, Ronald James Television, Michael Esposito, the Indiana Ghost Trackers, and myself were to have a venture down in the Sally House. I was visited by this older woman telling me that it's not time for me to come. Don't waste my time. This is what's going to happen. And she gave me the complete vision of what Michael would do, what the other Michael would do, what New Dominion's pictures would do, and what Ronald James' pictures would do. So I take everything from spirit seriously, and I placed a phone call to each and every one of them. And I explained, Michael, this is what Ron's going to do. Don't tell him. I want you to validate this. Ron, this is what Michael's going to do. Don't tell him. I want you to validate it, and so on. I get a phone call the day later that they arrived at the Sally House, and Ronald James was in the airport, dumbfounded and very upset. And I wish I kept the recording. It was something else. And the words are, "Okay, Mr. Psychic, so you happen to be right again, and you were exactly right about everybody. And yes, indeed, Michael did this, and Michael did that." And then I get a phone call from the other Michael, and he goes, "You were right. They wouldn't even let me in the house, and New Dominion did this, and New Dominion did that." So it just showed me that she knew that what was going to happen wasn't proper. And the message behind that is, if you ever, and everybody listening, if you ever want to do a spiritual encounter, don't call them paranormal investigations. They're spiritual encounters. They're people on the other side. I've been stressing this forever and a day. You can't toy with this stuff. It's not something you just toy with. These weekend warriors who want to go out and do filming and capture EVPs and stuff, we got to show a little bit more compassion and love. So therefore, what was explained to me was, this is going to be just a humdrum thing, and they're not doing it right. So I sat home, I ate popcorn, enjoyed my family, and then I get the phone calls. They're all upset. They wasted their time. A bunch of money got wasted for the production. Then I get a phone call. Now, at this time, would you like to come down? And I knew it was proper. She knew it was proper. I show up. I have a lecture. I explain to everybody that's there that flew in from New York, from Las Vegas, from all over, from Indiana, everywhere. And I said, when you do these things, you have to walk in completely open-minded. You have to have your heart put out on your sleeve. You have to have the compassion for the other side. You walk in with a positive attitude and the positiveness of an encounter. You'll walk away enlightened and educated. If you walk in wanting to see evil, wanting to see something bad, all you're doing is provoking the other side, and you're going to invoke something terrible upon yourself. And you're going to leave with a bad feeling, or this wasn't good, or you're going to be encountered by something that you don't want to. It's as if I walk into somebody's living room and say, "Hey, give me a drink right now. I demand it." And you're going to make somebody upset. So you have to walk in the light which you want to seek properly. If you don't, you're not going to get there. It's going to be a mundane, upsetting, turmoil thing, like that example I explained about New Dominion Pictures, Ronald James Television, everybody. So we walked in. Everybody was enlightened. We sat around. The house was warming. I did a walkthrough first in the morning and blessed the home and the people I encountered. I got up to 9 names out of that place, and they were all validated from the historian of the Sally House. It's amazing what we went through and the visitation. I walked into certain areas and discovered that, yes, there was energy, residual energy that was passed there, and they wanted to show what happened, so you have to offer that compassion. I went up to the master bedroom. I walked in the closet, and Michael Esposito was beside me. He's kneeling down, and I'm explaining everything that I'm feeling and sensing, and all of a sudden the little boy shows up in the corner, tied. And I did a double take, and he goes, "Robbie, what'd you see?" And I said, "The little boy. He's tied up, and he was abused here." This is where the little boy was really tied up. Now there's evidence that's been captured and put on paper and noted about Tony, who lived there, who's seen this himself. That's not really privy to the public. So when Michael said, "Oh my gosh, yeah, that's what Tony said. There was a boy here who was tied up and strangled and abused in this closet." I said, "Yeah, this is what it is." And I said, "Oh, I'm coming out here now." And I get the thing where the man's saying, "I'll let you out when I'm ready to let you out." And then I see the boy running down towards the stairs, getting to the stairs, and then I hear, come here, you little," and swearing, and then shoving down the stairs. Well, no sooner did we come back into the room. We had a film producer there, and he brought his Great Dane, great big monster dog, and the dog's sniffing around. We're out of the closet. He sniffs on the floor and curious, and he goes into the closet, sticks his head through the doorway, and the film is on this dog watching him, and he's just curious, and he's wagging his tail, and he turns to the right and looks at the corner where I was pointing. His ears went up, and he jumped backwards, and he had like a little, how the dog goes, like that, and backed up, and then he walked in again. He looked, and he did it again. Walked in the third time, and he ran out behind the producer and stood at the other end of the room, and I was going, "Come here, Andy," because we all knew what he's seen was what I seen. I said, "Come here, Andy, come here." And the dog kept backing up, going, and breathing heavy. And I said, "Oh my gosh, he's really afraid of coming in here." And the producer says, "Well, I'm going to bring him there. I'm going to walk forward." The producer tried to walk forward, took a step, and the dog literally walked out and stood in front of him, not letting him near the closet. Now that was very good validation.
From a dog, yeah, because they well renowned really for sensing things that we think that we can't. So, in your opinion, the experiences which Tony Pickman had, which is, I mean, there's been pictures of scratches and there's been fires that were lit in the house, and the TV show Sightings went through there and did a couple of investigations. What's your theories about what, inverted commas, attacked Tony?
We were talking, and it was amazing. I'm going to give you two things about Tony. They came out to the end of the night and did a speak to the people. I was watching Deborah Pickman as she was speaking, and I kind of glanced over at Tony, and it took me back because there was a gentleman standing behind him, but enlarged. So when I mean enlarged, it was like a double-sized human being, and making it known that he was attached to Tony. And I'm looking at this individual. So I get out of my seat, I walk through the crowd, on the other side to the doorway, and I'm looking at Michael, and he glances at me like, "What are you doing?" So I told him to come over here, and I said, "There's a gentleman standing behind Tony," and I start to describe it to him. Michael says, "Can you draw it out for me?" So I drew the picture. I drew out exactly what was all about Tony, and I went back and sat down in my chair, and I'm still drawing. On the other side of the room, there was a film producer. We had many film producers there. There was another film producer there, and he's looking over, and he starts getting frantic, and he's sitting by Michael, and he's going, "Michael, there's a guy in the window behind Tony," and Michael asked him, "Go see Robbie." So he comes over to me. He goes, I was skeptic coming here, and everything I've seen in the Sally house has just blown me away." And he goes, "But this has just taken me back." He goes, "There's a guy standing behind Tony." And I said, "Like this guy?" And I showed him the picture. Oh, did he freak? He started freaking, going, "Oh my God, that's him!" So he went and sat down, and Michael come back. He goes, "Don't tell Tony, because he just went through an episode at the Sally house on the 18th of August, and we don't want to upset him." And I said, No, this is just going to stay here with me. Well, Deborah kind of got on to what I was doing, and she come over and asked me what I had. I showed her, and she got real quiet. So then they stayed while everybody else left that night. We were talking about 12:30 in the morning, 1 o'clock, and she decides to tell Tony. It was up to her, so she did. Tony said, "Can I see the picture?" And I showed him the picture and the name I got. And Tony goes, "Oh my God, that looks like my family member, a Pickman." And the name was Norman. He goes, "I had an Uncle Norman." So when we have people attached to us, this individual was there. And it was fantastic to see that he validated that, and also not that he just validated it through what I was seeing, but we had somebody clear across the room who's seen the same thing, and that was fascinating. Mm-hmm. Now, Tony has a lot of resonating energy. He's very attuned to the specifics of the Sally house and people who watch over him. I made mention, and I do strongly feel, because I sense this, as you say, the woman and not a girl, and I was visited by a woman. Tony has the reincarnate of one of the Finneys who was living back then. Now, we have to take a look at that and say, wow, how is that? And it's true. That's what I'm saying. It's been brought up to them prior to, and that's what one thing they were looking for in their inner group, their inner circle. And Deborah said that's what we were thinking, either that or there was a menace of some type of energy in the home that just didn't like Tony. Well, if we are stuck in a plane and wanting answers, and we're not giving or getting those answers, I've mentioned this before, we'll keep coming back and visiting that time or that frame, and people are around, we'll say, hey, I'm here, and poke them, or, you know, make noise or make things move or whatever, and pay attention to me. I want acknowledgement. Well, it goes a little further for Tony. He gets, we'll say, attacked, and it's acknowledgement. Now, certain people who are in tune will understand, yes, I am psychic, yes, I am in tune, but they can't go any further to understand why they're getting this message or why they're being touched in a certain way. And Tony has that period where he can't get beyond that. So they're trying to research, and it's like a child in school. The lesson's still being learned. This is why he is being scratched or things phenomenally happen to Tony. I use terms like I think and I feel. Well, this time I don't think. This I know. And it can only be collaborated by everything that I've went through. And Michael said we made history in the Sally House. So when you make history, things are being validated to a T. You can't disprove or disown what I'm trying to say about Tony because of the fact that he's the one who's being attacked.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I actually completely agree with you. I mean, I'm about as psychic as a house brick, but when I was researching the Sally House, and the sallyhouse.com is actually a really good website, and the historian there has done a fantastic job, and when she was detailing all the Finneys that lived in the house, my thought was, I bet Tony's are somehow connected or was or is a past life experience of one of those individuals. So it was kind of freaky to hear you say that right then, to be quite honest.
Oh, yeah, most certainly. It was, and that's the one thing, too. I'm totally honest and upfront when I do investigations. I don't do background searches or anything like that because you get tripped up. And I'm going to give you guys an example. I'm there the night before. Michael invited me down, and I really didn't want to go. It was 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock. I just rolled into Aunt Atchison, and he says, you got to come down here. You know, I'm staying here tonight, and I just want to see you. And I said, well, all right, I'll go down there. And I took actor Jamie Routley with me. We went down there and sat in the living room of the Sally House. And we're just talking away, and I tell him, he goes, what's your impression? I said, it's very warm here because I'm coming in with the right attitude. And tomorrow we'll do this. I just want to, turn it off for now. Let's just talk. And two people come in. And there's a bunch of people standing out on the roadway and what have you because they knew we were coming into town. So these two people come in, and this lady starts saying she's psychic. She's from Mississippi, Tupelo, and, and she goes, I want to do this and that. And Michael sits back and goes, do you mind if I record you? And she goes, no. And she goes, there's this picture over here and all this. And I looked at Michael, and he looks at me, and Jamie goes, I got to go for a smoke. And I said, yeah, me too, because you can tell who's phony and who's not. So I went outside, and I didn't want to be bothered with that because it's negative energy when you pretend. And so she went through the whole place, and Michael was recording it. And right at the near end, she says, Michael goes, well, how do you know about this picture or this thing being on this wall here? And she goes, oh, because we read all this on the internet. My son punched up the site, and she caught herself, and she stopped. And then Michael just turned the recorder and went click off. And he wasted, I don't know, about a half an hour with this woman going through this house. And she looked like the fool. And so you get tripped up that way.
Yeah.
So what I do is I walk in cold. If it's right, it's right. If I'm wrong, well, so be it. We just continue on and do what we got to do. We're here to learn. We're not here to say who's right and who's wrong. So it was just amazing. That's how I did it. We came up with names that were just not put out there, that they have on recordings where you hear the children saying, my name's Anna, my name is Emily. These names all came, and it was just fantastic. Walking through the Sally House, my little finger, I was being pulled, and it was involuntary, and Michael's watching me, and I'm going down the basement, and I'm going to certain areas, and I'm talking how they run and hide, and they play, and then I'm in mid-sentence, and Michael's always got his eyes on me, and the camera's rolling, and I'm talking like I am now, and all of a sudden I stutter, and I said, oh, wow, and he goes, what was that? I said, I got poked in the back of the head, like from a kid playing. They poked me twice in the back of the head, and then, because I wear earrings, my left earring was being played with, and it was just, they were laughing and giggling, and I had 5 kids with me, And we were talking, and then they said, okay, we have to go now. So I said to Michael, we have to go now. They want us to leave this area. So all this is on recording, and it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. So by your investigations, the Sally house, who was actually named for Sally, has actually got nothing to do with the house. She's not there. She's not cursed or any of, there's no poor lost child there who's woken up from that. That's pretty much just legend, is it?
Yeah, God bless Peter James, and may he rest in peace. And he's a phenomenal individual. I honestly, I don't feel a Sally there.
Yeah.
I don't. Maybe it's been nicked or dubbed Sally, or someone was dubbed Sally as a doll. But other than that, there is no. And Michael said there is no records. And I said, there's no records of a Sally being here. He says, no. And I said, well, that's just strange. And he goes, well, they think there was a child that came in here that was named Sally. And, I sat there and tried to really look deep, and the only thing I could come up with would be a doll somebody would name Sally.
Mm.
There is no Sally as a person or a spirit there.
Sounds like a tremendous event, and I ideally wish I could have been part of it, but perhaps next time. Now you're off to New Orleans at the Haunted Hilton in October. Of course, people listening to us now in the US or anywhere in the world, if you wish to fly in, can still get tickets for that. I'll give out Robbie's info now. You can head on over to RobbieThomasTours.com or RobbieThomas.net. Both websites are available off Ghost Radio's webpage. You can click on through there, and if you specifically want to look at the tours site and sign up for the Haunted Hilton site, you can do that now and meet Robbie in person. And tell us what's going to happen at this Haunted Hilton New Orleans visit.
Oh, I hope there's going to be a lot of interaction again, and we're going to walk in there with the positiveness of education.
Mm-hmm.
It's an education because, again, we're children on this side of the world, learning, wanting to know more, and grasp that frequency of, hey, I do belong. So that's what we're going into, and I'm going to let everybody be the teacher, and I'm going to be the student. So when they walk through and say, Rob, I'm feeling this, and then I'll take it a step further to validate what they're feeling. Like in the Sally house, everybody was really reaching so deep that their energy that was sent out for feeling, some were getting nauseous, and some had to go sit down and go outside and get fresh air and what have you. Now, people may tend to say, oh, that's evil touching them, and it's not. It's not. What it is that they are really reaching from inside. They really want that connectiveness, and when it happens, it's overwhelming, so they don't know how to deal with it. And people walk around saying, well, and we had people there who are psychics and what have you, but they don't know how to discern the energy. They don't know how to overcome it and find the answers behind what's touching them. So then they become overwhelmed, nauseous, sick, headache, and they walk out. But that's a good thing because they weren't hurt. They were just becoming one with spirit. Now, the same thing with New Orleans. We're going to do that, and it's going to be fantastic. We'll have actor, director Jamie Routley with me, and he did a phenomenal job at the Atchison. He just took people by storm. He brought his props from Sister Keeper, The Mystical Adventures of Billy Owens. He talks about how the paranormal and the horror genre, they do coincide. And then Michael Esposito, the one and only. Still, he's my tag-along colleague. Love the guy. He's going to be there. And he'll talk about the frequencies. He'll talk about how to capture proper EVP, how to determine what is Class A, B, C, and stuff like that. He'll even give us demonstrations of what he has captured over the time with me through Dead Whisper and all the different places we've been. He's a phenomenal individual. He'll talk about his trip to Sweden and the summer house and what's coming up. Then we're going to have LA Spirits, Louisiana's very own paranormal group, who is a member of TAPS. They are just phenomenal people. They truly are. They're going to give us some insight of what goes on in Louisiana. They have a lot of background behind them. They're very integral. So they're going to be there. We have a special guest, mystery guest, that's coming. I can't tell you, but it's a special. and myself. And I'm going to take everybody out and let them have the time of their life. And that's what it's about. I've seen many, many different conventions put on, many different events, and the parameters of what goes on is just totally different. And it's more or less, this is what I got to sell, and this is what, and I look at that and I go, how are you teaching people? So what we do is we give them that opportunity to interact, and it is a one-on-one. We walk right into the audience. It's a one-on-one.
Here at Cecil Myers, we got a great selection of used
I
vehicles.
give a fast read to somebody. It's amazing. We do that, and then we take them out to let them further their education and encounter the spirit. And then, as you've seen, the letters are coming in left and right, and it's like, oh my gosh, I've enjoyed myself. I've encountered this, and this is totally awesome. And they love it. People love it. That's what they want. So that's what we're doing down in New Orleans.
It's a lot of fun, and better than, sitting in front of the television. Get out there and do a paranormal investigation or a spiritual encounter, as Robbie likes to call them, with Robbie Thomas and the Power of Spirit tour. Robbie, I want to move along just a little bit and speak to you about something which happened in June that I know was quite a confronting experience for you with Caesar Cano. Can you tell us about this little boy and how it affected you?
Yeah, as you can tell, my demeanor just dropped.
Sorry about that.
Every murder case I get involved in, it's very strenuous, and it becomes a part of you. It tears your heart out. On one hand, you wish you could go and grab people and shake them and say, why didn't you go there sooner? And on the other hand, you want to grab the monster and just bury it. Yes, I get a phone call, and it was June 30th. Would I help out in a missing persons case? A little beautiful boy, 4 years old, Caesar Cano, was missing. So I decided to say, I got company in the backyard. I'm entertaining. July 1st is tomorrow, and Canada Day, and so celebrations have begun, and I'll get to it on Monday. And the individual tells me, okay. And so we hang up. My wife overheard the conversation, and she says, you can't do that. You got to go back in there. And it was true. When she said that, it just hit me like a brick wall. So I said, okay, fine. I got to go back and do this. So I called the individual up, and I said, do you have a picture? Something. And so I got mailed to me a picture. And I'm looking at this beautiful little boy. And so for hours, I sat in my office just staring at him and doing remote viewing. I'm asking very deep questions because I know I can feel the fear on him. And I'm saying, Caesar, you have to show me where you are. Give me something, please. Give me something that I know that's around you. And the first thing I get shown is 4 discs, and they were like stadium lights. I seen the stadium lights themselves. So I'm thinking, wow. So I draw the circles, and I put down stadium lights, and then I get heard saying, they're not far from me. So I put not far away, and like dark, like off. So I'm looking at this, and I'm going, this is strange, but continue. And it was like pulling teeth trying to get the information because he was very fearful. And in the meantime, I'm getting flashes of what this individual looks like. And I say, continue showing me what he looks like. So I'm drawing as best as I can through the eyes of a 4-year-old to see what this individual looks like. I draw the chin, and you can see on the website, on robbiethomas.net, and you click on the pictures, everything, and it gets bigger. You see his jawline's very broad, and so I tried to draw it that way and darken with the pen to make it look like it was broad, and there's certain aspects of this individual. So then I'm going through that, and I'm asking, what more can you tell me? And then I get like more boys, pictures, and I see pictures of boys. So I put down, I see pictures of boys. Well, this individual was a repeat offender of an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, and then now Caesar ended up murdered. So that collaborated what he was as a monster. And then I'm continuing on, trying to go through all this step by step, and it's very draining. I think I'm into hour 3 now, and I'm talking and getting information slowly and sporadically. And then I said, you got to give me his name. You have to give me his name, please. And he gives me Cecil. So I write down Cecil. He misspells it, as I seen it, And then I looked at the paper and I correct it. I scribble out the one letter that's on there, and I put an arrow to the head, indicating that's Cecil. Then I said to him, okay, you have to give me the second name. And I was meaning the last name. And I was asking for the second name. And I'm sitting there trying to beg him to show me. And he gives me Eujan, U-J-A-N. That's what I heard. But the individual's second name was actually Eugene. So, you know, what you hear and what coincides is very close, and so you do your best. And I thought, like a typo, Eugen, I'm trying to put these letters together, and it looks like Juan. So I put down Juan, but actually it was Eugen, and I described that in my letter of details, and his name was Eugene. So we've hit it. And then I say, you got to give me, again, where's these stadium lights? And I get John. So I put down John, and not knowing what John was, but for the stadium and what have you. Well, if you stood on the porch of the murderer's home or looked out his window, you looked through the clearing, and wasn't very far away. There's Papa John's Stadium. It's right there. So I just thought, oh, wow, this is just I continue on, and knowing now what the evidence is like mind-blowing how he led me. I seen construction, men in orange vests, and I was wondering, what are you showing me? Construction in front of the house, and what's going on, and the vests of the men, and while Cecil was playing in front of Caesar's house that day, and they put gas line flags and water line flags along the front of his home, because they were doing a little bit of construction in front of the house, and Caesar was playing with those flags. So his last impression was playing with those, showing me exactly right in front of the murderer's home. This is where I am. So I write all that down, and he did a very good job.
And at this point, I just want to let everybody know that you were remote viewing, that Caesar was still alive.
Yes,
yeah.
Indeed. And he was showing me these things through fright. Then I felt the fear, and knowing that he was coming, and so we had to turn it off. So I got all the information as much as I can written down, and the fear was turning into horror because the individual was around. He described exactly what he was wearing and stuff, and I put that all down. It was just amazing. And then afterwards, I wanted to go back into doing this, and now I'm channeling the spirit, and I'm talking to spirit. I'm saying, I need more information. You got to help me. And I got dogs, and so I see dogs, and I put down puppies too, but it was dogs. And what happened was, they were led. After they got the information, they took the dogs, police sniffing dogs, and went into his home and got a bunch of information and evidence and boxed it all up and what have you. But coming back to the point, all this information was handed to the police, and it was handed to the detective on charge. It was given to ABC and also CBS, I believe, from the liaison in Kentucky, on the same day, same time as the detective and the police station got all this information. So it was all validated that if they said, oh, we never received it, it's all been validated. Letters were crisscrossed, and there was phone calls, there's phone logs and everything. The police wanted to work with me. There was phone calls that were placed, and they wanted the information. The activist for the family, Christopher 2X, was also notified. He knew of all the information that was passed back and forth. So that all went down in July 2nd. Now, July 1st, July 2nd, all this information was all passed into the liaison to the police and what have you. To come now, fast forward to July 7th, they found poor Caesar's body. And it was in the vicinity of where the murderer lived. If we took all the information that was given and from Caesar and from Spirit in that 20-house block area, and you ran the name Cecil, and you seen repeat offender, and you read through the information, there was only one person. Cecil is not a common name, and the profiling and everything that was given to me, that would have nailed him. Apparently the police went and approached him, was asking him questions, he got spooked and took off. So now he's been talking through a third party to give himself up. Last I heard, because I'm in Canada, is from somebody in Kentucky that is the grand jury was indicting him. You know, it's one thing to be a monster. You can run, but you can never hide. I've done many cases throughout my life here, and I'm going to continue to do them. And I'm going to come and grab every one of you. And that's where you belong, is in a cell that's 3 by 6, and that's even too good for you. You can tell I'm getting angry, and you know, because I've done so many children cases. It's unbelievable. But these monsters, these perpetrators, they don't deserve a life. They don't. It's not a sickness. It's not a sickness at all. They do it once. They should be put away, shot, and buried. I've seen too much in my life, and you know, I'm going to continue to do this. And you know, what can I say? There's many good people out there who strive each and every day to help out in society, to make a difference. And we got these morons running around doing what they do.
And I know that, well, you still are, but you were very upset after that, weren't you? Knowing you personally, I know you were just devastated that the police didn't act on the information, as you said, that would have been very easily, you know, run the name Cecil in that area, and you would have found a listed pedophile, because he was listed as a pedophile and a repeat offender, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was. And as much as we want to give weight to the fact that the law states you have to follow a procedure in order to get warrants and movability for the police to do something, I still say you bust down that door, you save that baby's life, and you get him out of there, and you take that monster and you put him away. And they missed it. They missed the opportunity. And you have to look at, the police were doing their job, granted, yes. And I've talked to many different people who were police officers, who are retired. You're talking to one right now who went through to be a police officer many years ago. And I still say, you know, there's laws that are in place that protect the monster more so than the victim or what we can do about it. But, you know, we got to take a stand. When we look at a 4-year-old beautiful boy like that, and you have evidence that's given to you, you miss the window of opportunity. What do you do?
All of Robbie's hand-drawn statements and the stadium lights and everything that he felt from that 4-hour remote viewing session is up on his website, robbiethomas.net. You can get up there and have a look exactly what Robbie wrote down himself, and then what later has shown to be just some amazing remote viewing. Basically, it was all there, so you'll be able to understand why Robbie was so devastated. Can I ask, have you had any contact with Caesar's spirit since then?
You know, at one point, yes, and very at peace. That's the message. I spoke with Christopher 2X, who was seeing the family, going through the burial procedures and what have you with them, and spending loving time with them. And I told him to pass the message on that he's at peace. There is no pain. He's there with them. And he relayed the message, and he told me that the family was very thankful, and they thanked me, and lots of love to them. I'm still busted up about this, because I know it's like yesterday, and I could have just reached out and did more, and this wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't be talking about this, and the police should have done a little bit more. It's hard, you know. I can see back and forth all the time, and it's a struggle.
Absolutely. But as you say, he's at peace, and for that we are grateful. And knowing that he's being cared for by spirit, and hopefully a little bit of that peace and love is extending down to you as well now, because that would be a terrible thing to have to go through and experience, and try and help and do what you can, and for it to basically kind of come to nothing. I can understand why you were so upset over what happened there. Now, Robbie, tell me about Loretta Lynn and what you're going to do with her very soon.
No, there's a beautiful lady. Yes, got a phone call by her daughter, Patsy Lynn, and she says, Mom's very interested in talking with you. Would you like to come and do an investigation on her ranch and read her Alan Jackson, Tanya Tucker, and more. And I thought, well, this is something else. So she said, Mom, I'll call you at 7. Her mom gives me a call at 7 that night, and we talked for about an hour, 15 minutes maybe a little more. We talked about kids. We talked about everything. She's so down to earth, and she's very, very up for this. She researched me. She's oh my gosh, she's remarkable, and she wants to do this. We were setting it up for Halloween night. The PR people for her were getting the network television, everything in line, and then I get a letter and a phone call from Patsy saying that more of her friends found out I was coming, and that she was doing this. They want to come, so we had to push it into November. And the last correspondence I have from Patsy Lynn was about, a week ago, maybe 2, and the PR people and the networks are trying to get a solid date to pencil it in, and then once it's done, we're going to let everybody know, and it's going to be on television live. You'll be able to tune in. It's fantastic.
So you're going to go down to her ranch and do what?
I'm going to read her,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to read Alan Jackson, Tanya Tucker, Patsy Lynn, her daughter, her ranch. We're going to do an extensive outlook on her ranch, and hopefully this will be a 2-hour special.
Fantastic. And the original coal miner's daughter, how exciting for you.
Oh, I was busting at the seams. I got off the phone and was jumping up and down and going, oh my gosh, and she says to me, Robbie, I got a little bit of time off. I want you and your family to come spend some time with me. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's telling me I got to come up there. And then she's explaining about the Brown House. And she goes, well, you can stay in the Brown House. I said, oh, okay, well, thank you. And she goes, but your wife and children are going to stay with me. And I thought, Loretta, what are you trying to tell me? And she goes, oh, Robbie, that's where they are. I said, so you're going to stick me in the Brown House?
You can stay with the ghosts.
Yeah, right. Oh, she's just, she's phenomenal.
Oh, great. Well, we'll keep tuned about that one. And again, get on over to Robbie's website, robbiethomas.net, to see the penciled-in firm date for that. Now, Robbie, on your Link to Heaven program, the very, very popular syndicated Link to Heaven program, which you're a host of on Sunday evening or Monday morning, as it is for us down under, last year you invited me on your show and other guests that had been on your show throughout the year, and you made some predictions for them. And I was so excited because I think people have this kind of, they probably think that I get lots of free readings because I have all these psychics on my show. It's just not true. It's unprofessional. I don't bug psychics for readings because I think it's unprofessional. I thought, oh, how exciting, I'm going to get predictions from Robbie Thomas. And went on his show, and you said, right, I'm tuning into you, Leah, and you said, my prediction for you is that I'm coming to Australia and I'm going to stay with you. And I thought, oh, that's a strange prediction.
You're right.
And I thought, oh, okay, because we didn't really know each other, all that well back then. And here we are almost 12 months later, and we can't really disclose the full details, but let me tell you that there is big stuff happening down under for Robbie and 3 of Australia's most well-known psychics very soon. When we can confirm that for you and when we can release the details, we will, people, don't worry about that. But suffice to say that your predictions are coming true. It's extraordinary.
It is, and I'm busting at the seams because it's going to be something else. I can't explain it. I get to hang out with your husband. You know what I'm saying? and meet you and everybody. And I would love to tell everybody, but I can't.
We can't, can we? No, it's all in legalities and pre-production things and all of that. So you'll just have to wait with bated breath and keep tuning into Ghost Radio to see what all that's about. But let me tell you that I had dinner with Scott Russell Hill last night, probably Australia's most well-known medium, and he loves this guy. And he said to me, I love Robbie Thomas. I said, yeah, I know. So perhaps that's a little hint for people.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. I like him too. I only had the opportunity to speak to him once, but we wrote letters back and forth, and he's a phenomenal guy. You can just feel the energy from him, and it's amazing because I get to meet him, so that says a lot.
It does. It's very exciting. Robbie Thomas, you've been an extraordinary guest as usual. I can't thank you enough for being my guest tonight, and we're going to have you back real soon when we can discuss all of this wonderful stuff. But thank you for telling us about your Power of Spirit tour. Now, Robbie's syndicated radio show, which is heard through Ghost Radio and all around Canada and the USA, is A Link to Heaven. You can tune in to Ghost Radio on Monday morning if you're in Australia, or Sunday evening if you're in the other side of the world, USA, Canada, and listen to Robbie, and you can call in yourself and get a reading off Robbie. The Power of Spirit tour is still happening. Next stop is New Orleans, so if you want to get involved in that, head on over to his website and book yourself a ticket. Robbie is also an author. We've discussed his books previously on our show, and we've also discussed Dead Whisper. But if you want to get copies of those, get on over to Robbie's site and get yourself a copy, and download the archives through Ghost Radio, and you can hear about our discussions about that. Robbie, my friend, you've been brilliant.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love your program.
We'll speak soon.
You betcha.
Okay, that's Underworld for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe, and blessings to you all.
You've been listening to Australia's own Underworld Show with host Leah Ramses. The Underworld Show is produced in Perth, Western Australia by iProdigy Communications exclusively for Ghost Radio Australia and the Ghost Radio Network. Tune in every Sunday at 8 p.m. Perth time to hear fascinating guests and topics such as the one you just listened to. For more information on upcoming guests, events, and breaking news, visit www.underworldshow.com or www.ghostradio.com.au.